Good evening. It's time for Press Pass. My name is Mark Masai. This is what's coming up.
As Deputy President William Ruto and his allies insist that ODM leader Raila Odinga is part of the fake gold syndicate.
Opposition Chief Raila Odinga has broken his silence over the fake gold scandal.
Following the narrative on the fake gold scam that has dominated the headlines. Is it being told as the politicians would want it?
We want to thank the media for the work they are doing. They have really given us much information about the CBC.
Lakini pamekuwepo na nafasi ama mwanya ambao hawajauziba.
We get to hear from the Mwananchi whether they feel that the coverage on competency-based curriculum being introduced has helped their understanding of the same. We'll also be looking at that ruling from Friday from the High Court on the LGBT community and whether there's homophobia within the newsroom. We'll talk about that in a bit. But first, let me introduce you to my guest. I have right next to me Sarah Bakata. She is the assistant editor at the East African part of Nation Media Group. And next to her is a colleague as well, and that is Eric Odwor. He is the Kenya Union of Journalists Secretary General, as well as a practicing journalist within the newsroom. And next to him is one that I'm proud to be hosting for the first time on this panel. That is Vincent Achuka. He's a senior investigations reporter at the Daily Nation. And next to him is, I need to be careful with this, senior reporter at NTV, that is Seth Olale, or else you'll leave in protest if I don't add the word senior. And let's just sample some of the views there on whether Kenyans feel that they have a better understanding of the competency-based curriculum based on the coverage that we've given it over the past 3 weeks or so, actually a month to give it the minimum time. Let's listen in.
Na pengine kwa vile ambavyo vyombo vya habari vimekuwa na nafasi ama mwanya ambao hawajauziba, kwa sababu mzazi haelewi. Wameangazia sana kuhusu labda tuseme vita vya hawa washikadau wa elimu. Manake tunaona chama cha elimu kinasema hivi, wizara nayo inasema hivi. Hawajatuambia shida iko wapi.
I want to applaud the media because of what they are doing. What we know, the symbol that we know, the detail that we know about the new curriculum is through the media. It's not through the ministry.
Ile kazi ambayo imefanywa na watu wa media, waendelee kufanya hiyo kazi na waweze kupea Kenyans insight ya kujua ile maneno ambayo inaendelea kwa education.
There is need of the Ministry of Education to take advantage of the media and roll out this information so that Kenyans can get to understand the new curriculum.
We have been able to get a lot of information through the media and we are grateful for that. We just call upon the national government to come down to the ground and get to work so that they can make the teachers know more about the CBC.
I think the media coverage on that issue has not been efficient as expected. For example, as myself, I don't even understand what it entails.
Wewe huwezi kulala kucha kitu kitakachohusu halaiki ya watu, alafu unasema kitakuwa kesho. Na wale watu syllabus ni kitu kirefu. Kwa hivyo ingekuwa wanachukua time kuiprepare mpaka wakati ukafika ndio wakaifanya.
Sasa sana ningeomba media waendelee kupublish maneno ya new curriculum ili ikuwe na wengine wapate masomo kutokana na media
kabla haijatumika. Mbona hii watu hawezi kuja kitu ile inaitwa public participation? Ama wako na watu wapi wengine wapi ambayo wanakatanga hizi vitu?
I think our training in the past has been a little bit of a lot of classwork with very little field practice. And therefore, when graduates, whether certificate, diploma or degree leave, they take a little bit of a while for them to get used to the practical environment. And I think that is what the ministry is trying to address.
Na tunasi media wajaribu pia kuendelea zaidi kuhamasisha na kufundisha wananchi juu ya new curriculum, kwa sababu much of public participation haijafanywa mingi.
Tunaomba kama ingewezekana tufunze ama tupewe mambo ya public participation ama media coverage, watu wengi wafunze wajue umuhimu ya new curriculum, sababu kwa sasa hatujaelewa vizuri.
Serikali iko na mipango inapanga ya curriculum mpya ya masomo ambayo si Wakenya wengi wanaielewa maana yake ni nini.
Hatujui ni nani anasema ukweli kati ya Sassion na CS. We don't know who is right.
So let's get a quick reaction from the panel, and this actually was brought to our attention by one of the contributors and panelists on AM Live. This is Herman Manyora, and he says, and respond to this if you may. Herman Manyora says, he tweets, this was on May 22nd, and he says, media should not aid KICD Kenya to peddle lies about the so-called CBC and the new education system. These fellows who have been unleashed to roam media houses should be paired in the studios by people who can challenge them. And he further says the Ministry of Education through KICD has let loose comedians to convince Kenyans through the media that this animal called CBC is not a skunk. Sarah Bakata, as you read this and what you've heard, what's your reaction?
I would like to agree with the gentleman who spoke last from the Vox Box.
Yes.
The guy said, we are being treated to a situation where we are just seeing the cabinet secretary and the NAT chairman, Sassion, talking about CBC, but we are not seeing the teachers, we are not seeing the parents, and the story is not being covered from the point of view that this government, or rather this country, is changing from one system of education to another. So where is the, because from where I'm sitting, I thought, first of all, I'm a journalist, I'm in the newsroom, and I read a lot about the things that we cover. But I have not seen personally that we have gone out of our way to say exactly what is competency-based curriculum.
Okay.
What does it entail? What will it take from us to move from the 844 to this other system? What does it mean for teachers, for students, for parents, and for the community and everybody to understand what this new system is? I don't think the media has done that.
What grading would you give us out of 10?
4.5.
4.5. All right, Eric, would you be a bit more generous in that, or be candid though?
Yeah, definitely, Mark. What is happening is that Jubilee government or Jubilee administration has largely failed in terms of communication. When you are coming up with such a project, where now you are transiting from 844 to a new curriculum, it means that you must also go with a communication strategy that is going actually to address some of these concerns that are being raised.
Okay.
Because what we've seen, like Sarah said, we've only seen exchange of words between Professor Magoha and Wilson Sassion, the NAT Secretary General. So that means that we actually losing the substance of the matter. And that with our communication strategy lined up actually will address those gaps. So that's where we are going to lose it. So we are hoping that probably the Ministry of Education would come up with a communication strategy with the clear message what CBC means, how it's going to be implemented, how it's going to change, and how it's also going to fill the gaps that actually were created by the 844 system. As it is right now, because this curriculum was actually supposed to address some of those challenges, that education actually was too exam-oriented, and those who have money actually have run away with all the opportunities that are available.
Yes.
Basically, as we continue with this war of words between the government and the union, it means those with the money, again, we're going to run away with this one, because by the time the government will be settling down, it means that those with the money, actually, that now the private sector actually is going to run away with all the benefits that come with CBC, because there are a number of issues that have been raised. For example, infrastructure, because this one is going to be practical oriented.
Right.
And you'll realize that most of the schools, the infrastructure is not there. Where are the books? And I think Sassion was saying that even if you are training teachers, actually you also need to do an audit and find out, is it working? So that when these teachers go to school, to classrooms, they're able to deliver. But if you are going to ignore that, it means that you are not going to address the challenges that were brought about by 844 that this CBC is supposed to address.
All right, and so you're grading out of 10?
I'll give them 4.
Give us 4. Okay, what are the media? Vincent Ashuka, Eric seems to put it more on the government's lack of proper communication and not on media. What's your take on this issue, based on the understanding of Kenyans on CBC?
I think I will disagree with Eric on that one, because it's not really a government problem to communicate. For me, it seems that the problem lies with the the media which is supposed to interpret these things to the public. And from the clips you have just played, it seems that people don't even understand what it really is. Because I don't think if I will explain to my mom at home that you're implementing a new curriculum, she will not know what it really is because she hasn't been told that yet.
Yes.
It's up to us as journalists to do it. But what you have seen so far is, as always, as it always happens, whenever we have a big project in this country, it degenerates to the political aspect of it. Who is saying what and who is responding to him the next day, because news as it is has been reduced to journalists actually reporting what the people they think are in power say.
So he say, she say kind of scenario. Your grading?
I think I'll give it a 4.
A 4. Okay, we're on the 4 here. Seth, I don't know, I won't influence your grading. You decide. But first of all, he's mentioned something about, and we heard it in the clips, there is always that fight. That's what people have witnessed between the CS, the ministry, and NUT. And it makes for good TV. And let's be honest, when we're making up these panels, we want a good fight. You know, it makes for good TV. We get to trending, and perhaps that is what we aim for. Is that a failure on our part?
Partly, in the sense that always when there is lack of political, or rather leadership goodwill from either side, at times, you know, in as much as we want to, you know, highlight the conflict and the dispute to make it to top stories, we somehow get swallowed in it. Yeah.
Okay.
And the most difficult part, even in coverage, has been sometimes, and we've had complaints from different angles or different groupings, that let's assume that, you know, the SecGen for NUT, Wilson Sossion, is right, that, you know, the CBC, the ministry, has not followed the international policy in regards to implementing a new curriculum. And if we, you know, try and delve into the issues, again, we're being journalists, will be perceived, you know, as really buying the idea from NUT. And sometimes it depends on who sees what.
Right.
And I'll tell you for a fact, we've had even union officials who at times would not even on an interview for a specific media house, and they say, quote unquote, "Ni amkwangi watu wetu." You know, you don't highlight,
you don't look out for our interests.
That, yeah. So at times it becomes so tricky, even just covering this narrative. I remember when the teachers were going through training, and we had some pockets in the country that, you know, were not really ready, and actually some protested.
Yes.
And then, as journalists, sometimes it's, in as much as we want to cover, you know, some of this confrontation, maybe we just forget to, you know, tell the real actors in this particular field, who are the teachers and the children, that what are some of the benefits that this curriculum will bring and all that.
Your grading?
For us, covering, to be honest, 6.5.
6.5. Okay, we have someone who's generous. She says, wow. All right, that's 6.5, but still work to be done in terms of the coverage and helping people understand. Benjamin Jern, you say, unfortunately, the media has not really highlighted what CBC means and what it entailed. So the common Mwananchi, including parents, are still in the dark. So work to be done, at least by the verdict of our panel here. We're not at a perfect 10, which is what we should be striving to do in helping our viewers and our audience and our readers understand on a day-to-day basis things that will affect them. It will affect us. We have children as well who are heading into that education system. Now, let's now switch over to another big story. And this is on the fake gold scam. And this is a story that has dominated the headlines. And today, of course, some of those who were arraigned in court have been released on bail, a story that you guys have covered. And first of all, I just want us to understand or just to admit whether we are staying true to the story or, again, the politicians are running away with it. We saw what played out yesterday, and that is a back and forth from the Ruto team and the Raila team response, back and forth. But can we ignore what they say as we tell the story and as it develops, Sarah?
No, we cannot ignore what they say, but unfortunately we should not get caught up in what they are saying. We should not lose the story. The story is that there's a con game. People are playing very bad games out here. The gold scam, as we have branded it, it's a gold scam. Let's stick with the story. We can't ignore what the politicians are saying. But nevertheless, when you start saying that one group is blaming another one, another group is blaming that, that's not our story. That is what they're saying, and we shall cover it as a sidebar, as part of the, what would you call it? You know, the other stories that are happening in between the bigger story. But the bigger story is the gold scam. Who are the players? Who's been conned? And can we go deeper into what is the genesis of this gold scam? Let's just stick to the story. And then the other things are just, the word is sideshows. The rest are just sideshows. Yeah.
Let me jump Eric Kidogo and just ask, and jump in wherever you can in terms of response, and ask Vincent, this issue, are we being divergent? As you've been following this story from the get-go for weeks now. And when Raila speaks, or Ruto or his people speak, how do you treat this as an investigations reporter, senior investigative reporter from Daily Nation following this story?
I would say, first of all, much of the decision making is not done by us. But if I was the one making the decisions, whatever Raila says should be taken as a by the way. Because first of all, you cannot even prove whether whatever he's saying is true or not. Because at some point in this story, people actually started doubting whether the person who was allegedly conned was even actually a royal in the first place. Then for 2 days, it became silent. Then when Raila came back, I think he came back from Juba, the very last minute, actually, that was not the story we were intending to run, but we had a story related to the gold scam. But the very last minute, a story came from Kisii that Raila said he was actually in Dubai. There is no way of proving this. But because it is him who has said that, I think editors are most likely to go with whatever he has said for the sale value of it. Not because it will add any value to the story.
But as an investigator, they would still follow these leads. If he says he was a whistleblower, he went to Dubai, this is Raila I'm talking about. This is something as an investigator, whether as a reporter or even the investigative agencies, they would follow that. It's not something to ignore.
Yeah, but the big problem is, how do you prove between the time Raila says this at a rally in Kisii, 2 hours before press time, that he was actually in Dubai, or if he met the ruler? At what point do you prove that, okay, actually he was there or he was not there before you run the story? Eric is an editor downstairs here. I think he should tell us how...
Is he the one who decided on changing
how they decided this? Because at some point, I kind of think we are losing it.
Right.
But this is how I look at this story, Mark. Because this is a very complex matter, and it involves actually international ring of criminals. And I think this is a story that you don't need 1 or 2 days to hack. You need a Juka to take like 6 months or even 1 year just to sit down and do this story.
But he has to tell the story on
exactly. Yeah. For now, we can just tell the story the way it is. But for the media actually to help is that he needs to take time, or anybody who wants to get to the bottom of this matter and come up with a story needs to take time. That will even take up to even 1 year. Then you come up with a good story that will answer all these questions. But as it is right now, you know, it's very difficult for us because we are just trying to do a catch-up game because so-and-so said this, so-and-so said this, and you need time to verify some of this information, and you can't have that, like he's saying, you might not have that time to do that. But for him, I'm expecting that in 6 months, we should be coming up with a very good story that actually goes down and bring out all these issues, because it's not something that you can do within a week. You need time.
He threw it to you as an editor because as a reporter, he's faced with some limitations. Would you give him 6 months and put him off desk?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that is the only way. If you look at some of these stories, actually, the scandals of such nature, you will realize that reporters who do those stories, they take time. Actually, sometimes even 1 year for them just to come up with a very good story, a solid story that will tell you how these things are done. Because it involves so many organizations. Like you look at the stories that have been told, you'll see the police are involved, politicians are involved, even businessmen are involved. Because you cannot do a transaction of 300 million mark without involving different agencies, including law firms, including banks. You see, and this is not something that you can just get out within a week or within a day. So as much as we are also going to update the public about what is happening, but I think someone somewhere actually needs to take time and go deep and bring out all these issues, who are involved, how is it done, so that we're able to have a solid story. A solid story cannot be done within a day.
Okay, I don't know if you answered Vincent's question to his contentment, but let me throw it first to Seth and the challenges we face in broadcast. He's just told you how it played out, and before press, they had to actually change the focus and how they were looking at the story and go with the Raila version. And from your point of view, Raila, and I mean, it's something, if you have that bite from Kisii and you don't carry it in your story because you have a different version, what would happen with your editor, our editor here? We have Moraya Karaoke, we have Emmanuel Juma. What would play out?
I think as NTV, we've done well in terms of ever since we started covering the fake gold scam, in terms of covering both, highlighting both the political angle and also now the real issue, which is now the stories we've been doing, the perpetrators or the accused persons we've been covering in our day-to-day news bulletins. But I agree that priority should be on the issues, on the scandal itself. But also right of reply for the ODM leader. Also bearing in mind that, you know, ever since this issue went political, we've had one side of the political divide, you know, each and every time mentioning Raila's name. And so I think also it would be fair enough to, you know, give Raila a chance to reply, but also be dominant on the issue, which is now the scam itself. And fair enough, I think, as NTV and Achuka, and I believe the entire editorial, we've really, you know, tried to, you know, unearth the scam itself.
Okay, you've done a good job in defending. Yes, first, Sarah, yes, go ahead.
Because in my opinion, the story is really trying to get muddied at every point of the way. And you tend to see that the political factions are trying to make, you know, they're trying to use this story for their own benefit. Yes. So it's unfortunate that this gold scam story came about and the people who are being mentioned in it, CS for Interior, Raila goes to Dubai and comes back. I mean, these are people that we listen to every single day. Yes. They're people that we cover. It's unfortunate that they came into this gold scam story. So now the two factions, that is Tanga Tanga and Kieleweke, all of a sudden, people from both sides realize, oops, now we can jump on this gold scam story and fix these guys. So they bring in all these political things to it, but the story is not about their political things. Right. The story is about a gold scam. So as much as we need to cover the political shenanigans that they keep accusing each other of, still the story is the gold scam. Let's do the gold scam story and then bring in all these other, like, and then to add into everything else, now this faction is saying this and this faction is trying to use this story to do this. Then we build a whole story. Then we give a wholesome story without losing one side of the story or the other. Right.
Yeah. Vincent, as you're listening to their responses, are you content with the explanation as to why we're taking those angles?
I actually don't think that politicians just got into the story and started to muddy each other. We should first of all get to the origin of this story before politicians came in. I think roughly about 2 weeks ago, on a Friday, there was a rumor that some guys had used Matiang'i's name to con some fellow gold. Then by Monday, it had metamorphosized to actually people use Matiang'i's name. It's actually now a true story. And one name now came up, which was, I think, Zahir's name. But on the same day, Standard broke the story on the front page. Then I think the next day, People Daily brought in Wetangula's name. Up to that point, as Nation, I think he was still cautious on whether to bring in politicians or not. Then after a whole week, on a Saturday afternoon, an audio leaked. That's how Wetangula's name now came in, that he was allegedly involved in the scam.
Yes.
Apparently, Wetangula was flying out of the country on that day to Hong Kong, and Raila was not in. So naturally, when Raila came, because of course, probably he wanted to, because as much as he's not with Wetangula politically anymore, it is in his interest to appear to be defending Wetangula. So when he took it up, Then guys from this other end of Tanga guys took it up now as a political squabble that needed to be solved.
Yes.
Then everybody lost their soul at that point. So for the last 1 week, we've been running stories about, I don't know, Ruto is in a church somewhere. We're actually expecting him to talk about it. And he plays the gallery so well, and we pick it up, it becomes front page story.
Yes.
Then the next day, Raila's team calls a press conference, then they respond. You know, up to now, we have actually forgotten that the DPP last Friday issued a statement and he directed the IG to expedite investigations on that matter and give him a report actually by Saturday,
yes,
which was last Saturday. We haven't seen the DPP talk about it. No one is questioning really. And if you asked me, 2 months ago, we had the Kimwarer and Arodam scandal, which were like big news for 3 weeks. Then politicians came in, and then the issue just became political and it died. The DCI, I think, has forgotten about it right now.
Yes.
And is almost forgetting about the gold. And the people he said that are supposed to be questioned, which I find it very weird, that the DCI can say on TV or on a newspaper, I'm going to summon someone, and actually in the real sense, he hasn't summoned that guy. People are walking on the street. No one has issued a statement, and actually the people who we think are major players in this scandal have been for the past 1 week being given, I think, front page stories and
Right.
also on TV talking about how much wealth they have and actually distorting the story.
Yes.
I saw the Standard last Sunday ran a completely one-sided story from Zahir, which they claimed was from an exclusive interview. Yeah,
yes.
Where he said that gold was, I think, 20 billion or 30 billion. He wasn't questioned. It ran like that. Then he actually even said he's worth 2 billion. He has, I think, 2 helicopters. A lot of hogwash, really, if you ask me.
Right.
Yeah.
But Mark, looking based on what Achuka is saying and what we read in the media, you'll get an impression that actually so far the media actually has not gotten the story. What's the story actually about the gold? Because this is not the first fake gold story actually you're having. This gold story has been there, only that probably this time around maybe a prominent person was conned and that's why actually it blew off. But these gold stories have been there. So it means that media is still playing a catch-up to find out actually what is the real story behind these gold stories. And I believe that if given enough time, maybe this story will be told one day.
Right. And is it wrong?
I assure you it will die. give it 3 days.
That's what I'm saying.
So from now.
That's what I'm saying. It will die because right now we are following what politicians are doing and what politicians are saying. But if we as journalists now go down and do our work and dig deep so that we are able to get these facts and bring them out, a story cannot die. But if we follow the narrative, like Mark is saying, the narrative that has been constructed by the politicians, the story will die. But if we move away from what politicians are saying and do our work as journalists, the story will not die.
It's very shocking to hear it from the investigative reporter. And this is him just admitting reality on how things play out. You've mentioned the Aror saga, Dam saga. The politicians come and they run away with the story and we tend to forget. But we'll come to conclude this matter and then get into the other issue, which is almost taboo in our newsrooms, the homosexual issues. There was a ruling last week, and there's a lot of emotions when these discussions come up because there's that culture that should be governing our views and how we lead our lives. Is that influencing how we are practicing as journalists in telling this particular story? Stand by, we'll be bringing that discussion to the fore in a bit. Welcome back to PressPass, and the conversation is continuing as we want to break. Constant Cap, you respond and says you follow this conversation. Come on, PressPass. We are now used to alarming headlines. For a few days, then plastic arrests and no follow-up. The press has been falling for the flow created by the political class and does not interrogate further or maintain follow-up. Is it our fault that we don't maintain follow-up? The way you admitted that this story might be dead in a few weeks, is it because the journalist in Achuka has given up or feels this is a dead end to follow up?
No, I don't think so. I think as a country we are kind of used to scandals erupting like almost every week.
Yes.
Some of them are by the creation of the people in power, and of late it's by the creation of, I think, the DCI and the DPP, who, if you ask me, as much as they are doing a great job, they are kind of media hungry. Yeah, that is why we even have a name for Friday nowadays in media circles. It's called Kamata Kamata Friday, and everybody who is in the newsroom on Friday, if you don't have a big story that you're following, you are expecting either by 6 a.m. when you wake up, and editor will call you and tell you.
You understand?
Yeah.
DCI and the SEC.
Right. Has arrested someone. And because these things keep on recurring, and mind you, as the media, we're also constrained in terms of numbers. So you are being forced to chase what is the biggest story at the moment. So in time, you lose track of what happened like 3 weeks ago, a month ago. So it's not our liking, really, if you ask me.
Right.
Yeah.
And if we know then that this will play out, the script is the same, the Kamata Kamata Fridays, and it's good again for TV. The cameras, seeing Waitito arrested and with his followers, it's good TV. Is there a way that we can change our approach? Because it's as if we're telling the viewer, okay, you think it's a wrong thing, but it's going to happen again. Sorry to say so. Can we change our approach? And if you came on a Friday and didn't give that approach to your story, what would Juma tell you?
Where were you?
I've seen it on Citizen.
Yes.
Why haven't I seen it on NTV?
Exactly. But also we should just keep the momentum. And I would encourage my colleague Achuka here that, let's keep on keeping on. The challenge sometimes has been, we have to verify each and every report. And now the tricky part has been, and like my colleagues are saying, the narratives keeps on changing. And the arrests are new and the issues are new. We'll have NYS, we'll have KRA, we'll have NCPB, we'll have all this, yeah. But if the investigative agencies can cooperate even further, because I agree, is as if this particular issue is supposed to be hot according to the investigative agencies, right, only up to some certain points, yeah? So that when you go to DCI headquarters and you're trying to, inquire deep about this, they sometimes are reluctant. And to them, the most important thing was, to have the flashy cameras outside DCI, this suspect, being driven out to the court with those, speedy Subarus and all that. But if they would cooperate, and for instance, NTV, we did an exclusive last Thursday about the fake gold seizure at JKIA, right? But, even just to follow it up with, this year, how this is about, what was inside, it's so challenging, yeah? It's almost, they're almost not cooperating at times, yeah? And so I would agree with Achuka. Is it when they have their interests, highlighted, is when we're supposed to set our eyes on the ball? Because in as much as I will be willing to continue with the fake gold investigations, maybe even for like 4 months, yes, to get to the root causes and all that, you also need verification from each and every angle you are getting. You need the DCI, you need the police to say, it is true. Yes, we are following this. But when that cooperation is not there, at times we are stuck.
But if it's clear, Sarah and Eric, and if it's clear that we know as much as they want us to know, then can we say that there's over-reliance from the newsrooms on the DCI, the DPP, the other investigative agencies on such matters? Because we as he says, we're waiting for cooperation. Should we then strive to be independent in terms of the way we approach these?
Absolutely. I think that's the only way we can crack some of these stories, because I totally agree with what they're saying. Because if we depend on the DPP, if we depend on the DCI, and all of a sudden the case goes cold, they move on to another case, and we do the same, we don't even bother to remind our readers and our viewers. Like last week, we had the same kind of case, and we hit a wall because the police told us nothing, the DCI told us nothing, the DPP told us nothing, and then we move on to the next story. Within a month, we've covered 20 scandals. None of them has made any headway. We are the problem. They are not the problem, because we are not the ones. We are the ones who are not pushing enough. We are not the ones who are. We are the ones who are not investigating enough.
Is it enough to say that you'll ask questions for verification from the DCI and they won't answer?
Then we have to find another way.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I think.
All right, Eric, as we conclude this matter, and if you can throw in your last comments on this before we move.
I totally agree with Seth and what Achuka they are saying, because I think we are also expecting too much from the reporters. Because newsrooms actually have also not invested so much in human resource. Because you'll expect that Achuka, when Achuka is following this story, or Seth is following this story, there's a team of experienced investigative journalists also working in the background, so that who can do the verification. You wouldn't expect that Achuka will be running to DCI for a story, also to get who has been arrested immediately. Then at the same time, you also expect to do the verification. So it means that these stories actually are supposed to be done as a team. So there is a team of experienced journalists who are sitting in the newsroom who are also giving backup to Achuka. And that is actually how international media actually do this, because there are reporters who are in the field, then there is a backup team in the newsroom actually who is offering some of these services that are required in terms of verification, research, background, so that by the time the story comes out, it's a story that actually has all the answers that readers would be looking for, viewers would be looking for. So that's the approach that I'll have.
I want to believe that there's nobody as hard to cover as President Donald Trump. Every other day, he tweets by the hour. That guy issues statements by the minute. He has pressers, he has all these things. Right. But the American media has kept a tab on that guy. And exactly how Eric has explained it, there's a back team of people who are following everything that he says, recorded, verified, quoted. You know, they even put a quotient. How wrong was this? How much % truth was there in his statement? All those things. So every time a journalist goes out and President Trump tweets or says something, they fall back on what the back team has done. Oh, by the way, and we found this and this and this and this, and he said this in the past 48 hours, in the past 96 hours, in the past 2 hours. We, Kenyan media, are not doing that. We are not doing that,
Achuka, with the ideal picture that is being drawn, can we expect you to at least give better hope to your reader and our audience that you will pursue this story, or we'll just say tutapambana na hali yetu and take it as it comes?
No, and I don't think it's just this story.
Yes.
Yeah, I probably think there's so many stories out there that are yet to be told. I don't think it's all like doom and gloom, if you ask me, because we have brilliant reporters.
Yes.
In all these media houses, if you ask me, the biggest 3 media houses have got very brilliant investigative reporters. It's just a matter of time, but then I think our editors should also try not to prioritize too much of politics, because even if you have a brilliant story, whatever happens to it, as long as you have a politician probably in the caliber of Raila or maybe or Ruto or whichever, as long as they comment on it, the story just disappears.
You have to lead with that.
Yeah, I think there has to be a change in mindset from the production side of things.
Well, some editors are here. Hopefully they'll put that into practice, and some are watching and will do the same. Now, to the other issue that broke last week, and the High Court, I'm borrowing this from a story that was put together by Helen Aura. The High Court of Kenya on Friday ruled against the criminalization of same-sex relationships, and the decision maintains that the colonial era law, which classified gay sex punishable, by up to 14 years. Now, the ruling made by judges Roslyn Aburili, Chacha Mwita, and John Mativo said that the Kenyan Constitution, and we can show some of the pictures, only recognizes marriage between members of different sex. The ruling comes as a huge blow to the National Gay and Lesbian Human Rights Commission, who had moved to court urging or arguing, beg your pardon, the Constitution violates their rights as every person is said to be equal before the law. The Kenyan government, backed by powerful Christian groups, is opposed to scrapping the ban on gay sex, having argued during court hearings just last year that it will lead to the same-sex marriage. The law against gay sex in Kenya, sections 162 and 165, was introduced during British rule more than 120 years ago. I'm told actually this is borrowing from a story by Helen Wanjohi, not Helen Aura. All the same, it was a big story, and yes, we're still getting reactions to this. Let me just ask this from the very top. Is there homophobia in our newsroom, Sarah?
Yes. Without a doubt.
Okay. Does that affect how we cover and the objectivity that we give these stories?
Yes. If you remember, Mark, a few years ago, I can't remember when, there was a Kenyan man who left the country a while back and I think moved either to the US or to the UK. And the guy chooses to get married to his partner. Of course, it was male-male, whatever, same-sex marriage.
Yes.
And the way the Kenyan media covered it was just horrendous. We were not covering it to inform people. We covered it to ridicule the guy. Absolutely. And we had pictures. I think the family was gracious enough to give us pictures of the wedding, you know, and told us about this guy, his life and his lifestyle and all that. Let's not even go that far back. The late Binyavanga Wainaina, when he came out, hardly 2 years ago, was it 2016 or what? How did we cover that story? Totally ridiculous. Absolutely. We had no reason to cover it the way we did. You know, not even just Nation Media, but all the media houses in Kenya. You know, we put the guy there and we went and told all these stories, and I don't know. It's just not right. Kenyan media is homophobic.
Okay, and just looking at some of the headlines here, this is from Daily Nation on Friday. High Court rejects, I'm told I should, let me just position this right, beg your pardon. High Court rejects plea to make gay sex legal. This is by the Daily Nation. I think you can see that. Is that okay? Yes, you can see that clearly. Yeah. To Jackie. You could just confirm to me. I can't see it from where I am. Yes, and then there is this one by BBC just to compare. Kenya upholds law criminalizing gay sex, and it actually gives a very, good coverage in terms of the reactions and the situation on the continent generally, like how many countries in the continent have, made laws to criminalize the same. Well, this was a bit different. This is Capital News. Dismay as Kenyan court refuses to scrap anti-gay laws. And this is from CNN. Kenyan court upholds law making gay sex illegal. Would you say, Eric, the tone at which we took it, that is, the coverage of this High Court ruling, was celebratory?
I don't think so, because this issue of same-sex marriage, I think, is a new concept that actually in our society.
New concept in 2019?
Yeah, exactly, in our society, and that's why, and that is why people sometimes are not receptive to the idea, and we have to accept, because it's 2019 years, but we are looking in our own context here as a society. I'll give you an example. Look at how BBC covered the story about the night runners and the uproar that was there and how they covered it. Because to them, that is something new to them.
Yes.
Actually, there also is a new culture to them. In the same way, the gay story is also still a new culture to our society here. For us, maybe we'll call the elites or people who are educated, is something that we read and probably will have an idea about it. But you're also addressing the audience that probably they are hearing about these things for the first time, or they don't believe that these things actually we should be still discussing them in our society. So for us, we actually, when we do the story are actually, they are consumers of these stories, and the consumers of these stories sometimes they are still not receptive to these ideas. So you cannot just give them the stories that probably still go to scare them. They're still wondering, how are these guys doing these stories? How are they telling us these stories? And in our society, still a taboo. So those are some of the things that, as we continue, I think people will start receiving these stories probably positively. So as the media, when you are coming with these stories, you have to be careful, you have to be cautious on how the stories are going to be received by the consumers. Okay. So basically, I don't think the Kenya media actually is not sensitive to this matter, but at least we are also just trying to ensure that when we are giving these stories to the consumers, we don't do stories that the consumers are like, what is wrong with these guys?
Okay. Anything wrong with saying, you know, the media, Kenyan media, largely is homophobic in our approach? I mean, we are from our society and we mirror the society. Anything wrong with that?
I don't see anything wrong with that because the media operates in a society,
yes,
as you have just said. And the people who are working in these media houses, like in the Kenyan situation, we are all Kenyans. And that is how probably Kenyans perceive this matter. But as years go by, if you remember when I think HIV was first reported, I must have been too young maybe, but I've seen initial clippings of initial stories about how HIV was being reported when it first arrived in this country. Now, 30 years later, the tone has changed. People are speaking about ARVs, living positively, and all that. So I think on the matter of LGBT, with time, it is going to soften. But then again...
And on that point, are we then encouraging this when you talk about softening of positions and notions about homosexuality? Would we then be accused of promoting this same practice within society?
No, we are not promoting. The job of the media is to report and interpret.
Yes.
And actually, in the months leading to that ruling on Friday, I've seen a number of op-eds in newspapers and actually columnists not even having an issue about the LGBT affair after all. So I don't think we are too harsh or neither are we promoting. The only difference is during the day of the ruling, Western media houses and Kenyan media houses seem to have like different agendas on why they were there.
What did you read into that?
If you read actually every story by the Western press, the first para that introduces that ruling, all of them have got riders. Like they say the Kenyan High Court, I don't know, dismissed what, then a comma, receiving, then they received a lot of backlash, I don't know from where. Even the Capital FM story I've just read, which you say was a bit fair, I think they adopted it from AFP.
Yes.
Yeah, that's why it looks like it has a different tone
from
what
AFP.
Everyone else was reporting.
Right.
Yeah.
Seth, how do we separate your journalist and you have your position on this very matter and how you report on this, whether you agree to it or not?
It's a very thin line between, genuinely informing and promoting an agenda. Let me just try and highlight what went down in court today.
Today?
I was at the media center at the Milimani Law Courts, and we were just discussing with some reporters and journalists there, and they were telling me I was off last Friday, so I was not at the Milimani Law Courts to watch what went down, but they told me it was a beehive of activity. But even notably, they admitted that we have been biased. The editorial, the newsrooms have been biased towards covering this. We only brought the issue, or maybe blew it up so much in the judgment. This is a case that has been ongoing for months.
Yes.
And do you know what? Like 90 or 99 to 1 of the media, the foreign media actually represented 99% in like the entire hearing process up to the judgment. And this is what they told me, and I'll quote them. They said, you know what, we got tired. We were covering this event, we were covering this case, we were writing the stories to our bosses. It was not seeing the light of the day, and so we got tired, and we stopped. And
so they would come with the story to the editor, and the editor says, no,
it was not being highlighted. But again, my boss once told me, and I don't know if this is factual or not. It's only in a situation in a war where journalists are allowed to take sides.
Yeah.
And I know this is a very sensitive issue, but like Achuka said, almost 90% mark of our consumers are Kenyans. Kenyans who have a culture, and they come from an ethnic belief, or you know what, there's something that they affiliate themselves with.
And 80%, so to say, Christian. Yes.
80%. And so, you know, it's a very thin line, but Eric is here maybe just to highlight that more. But I was told by my boss, it's only in a situation like a war when journalists are outrightly allowed to take sides.
Okay. Sarah, keeping in mind the audience and the people that we, broadcast to or send our stories to, that read our stories, we have to keep them in mind. This is a society that does not welcome this practice. So it's no surprise the tone at which we, give some of these stories. And we are part of the society. First of all, should I declare as a reporter whether I support it or not? Does it matter?
No, it really doesn't matter. Because first of all, Mark, ask yourself, and let me ask you, Seth, you were there in court every single day that a judgment came, because I remember there was an earlier judgment about 2 months ago. Yeah. The people who were seated there in the courtroom, young Kenyans, old Kenyans, gay Kenyans, homosexual Kenyans were there. Yeah. I mean, those were Kenyans following a court case about themselves and about their lifestyles. There were no white people there. I didn't see any Muzungus there. I didn't see any foreigners there. They were all young Kenyans. And the pictures that came through on social media, they were crying. Did we even highlight that? Did we even say, these are Kenyans whose lives are going to be impacted by this ruling? We didn't bother. Did we as media go out and find out what percentage of Kenyans are gay, by the way, today? How many?
Would they actually come out and say it?
But they were there in court.
How will you find out? You go asking people, are you gay?
They were there in court.
Would you say they are good representation of the Kenyan populace?
Absolutely. And those were the ones who were brave enough to come out. How many people are still in the closet because of the same things that the media is still perpetuating? Because let's just ask ourselves, how did that court get to, the case get to court? It was put there by Kenyans, by people who felt their rights are being infringed, by people who felt they are not being accepted as who they are. Remember the case of the young lady who was it the young man who was a transgender? I mean, it's the same issue. Whether we like it or not, these people are here, they live with us, this lifestyle is here, is amongst us, and the sooner we accept, they are, even if they are minorities, minorities have rights.
Right.
That is my opinion, by the way. So there's no point of hiding and saying our greater consumer is not gay. We don't know. By the way, we don't know, so let's not assume.
All right.
Let's not make assumptions.
But we also can't ignore the society that we live in. I mean, 80%
That is the
Christian.
society.
Yes, 80%
even the Christian.
Christian.
Who says Christians are not gay?
Yeah, it's said out there. I mean, that's not something I can say with facts and figures.
I was just going to ask Sarah, what's the thin line between informing and promoting an idea which, basically, even if you asked the guys who were in court, this is a general perception, yeah? And I'm just saying it's a perception. People talked in court last Friday, and from some sentiments from people, they were saying that this would only be genuine if it was not being driven by foreigners. And that was what was being said.
But was that
at the Milimani Court corridors?
The people who back this particular push and campaign.
That was the perception, and and they were even saying, how comes the foreign media is so much interested in this particular case? And the people who we talked to and who are giving opinions were saying, if it were a genuine Wanjiku issue, but it seems like this was it's actually being driven by some foreign force. I don't know. But this was a genuine concern that
who was the foreign force? Because the people who were there were not foreign. The people who broke down and cried were not foreign. They were Kenyan.
But you have heard that the NGOs that are actually backing this particular campaign, that's where this particular narrative comes from.
But Mark, so was the pro-democracy movement.
Right.
It was being backed by foreigners. Did we have an issue with that? Absolutely not. So are the other issue of let's have equity, gender equity. It's being backed by foreign organizations. Do we have an issue with that? No. But all of a sudden, the gays are being backed by foreigners, so let's have an issue with that. It's not right.
What's our moral obligation as a media in terms of...
To inform that there's this minority group of people who are fighting for these certain rights. Is it so hard?
Didn't that come out? Didn't that come out in the way that, you know, there were people who protested the ruling, and we even showed them.
And then you put a rider there because they're being backed by a foreign organization or by foreign ideas. The rider is always there.
I'm just wondering what the media was expected to do other than highlighting what happened in court, which I think actually happened, unless the media was expected to start promoting gayism in the country. But at least,
wanted
exactly.
us to do a whole color story, you know, how they arrived.
Yes, exactly. But for us, our work, actually, when you are covering courts, actually, you are supposed to actually cover the judgment, how it was delivered, and the contents of the judgment. And I think that's what the media did. So whatever happens there, I think nobody has had any issue with that, because for us as a media, what we are required to go and tell the public how it happened in court and what the court decided.
Yes.
So the perception actually is now left to the consumers of news, how they are going to deal with it.
Okay, we'll end this conversation on the LGBT coverage after the break, but then also get into that one thing that has been hinted at by Seth, saying there earlier that we only agree when we are at war. And it seems there is some diplomatic spat between Kenya and Somalia, and someone did actually comment, we are in our right to be biased when covering issues that threaten our sovereignty as a nation. And we are talking about the maritime spat that has been between Kenya and Somalia, has actually played out today in them boycotting or banning the representation or participation of Somalia organizations in the UN Habitat meeting ongoing today and in the next few days of this week. Stay with us, we're in a concluding part when we come back.
Did you know with Branch, you can repay your 30K loan in 6 monthly installments? Choose Branch today and lipa pole pole bila stress. To download Branch, text NTV to 22463.
We're about to get into the diplomatic spat between Kenya and Somalia. It's actually not a smiling matter. I'm actually responding to or was reading something here by Gregory Anyona Mogaka, who was following the conversation on our coverage on LGBT matters and issues. And I don't know if this was addressed to you, Seth, because the picture is there, but he says, the media in the country is homophobic, and even the gents in studio are uncomfortable talking about it. Media rights often are backed by foreigners too. We are all humans first before we are anything else. And Philip, you say, filling this combo, you say, please don't be an apologetic for a homophobic media industry. Stop trying to rationalize it. It's also no coincidence that it's only the male panelists who seem to be closet homophobes. The patriarchy, you say. Gentlemen, this is something that won't be going away in terms of reportage on the same. It'll also be coming up in the near future. There's developments. People will challenge it in court. There'll be stories, on people. Actually, on that particular day, there was a video, we couldn't show it, Seth, of a man who was attacked on that day of the ruling. People followed him. He's said to be gay. People followed him and attacked him. And that's probably why people are concerned in terms of what we put out in society, in terms of people's response to them. Would you place that on the media, or is that just society?
Yeah, again, like we said, it's a very sensitive issue, and the person who was attacked, unfortunately, attended court on that particular day.
Yes.
And first of all, the actions, from my personal opinion, the actions towards attacking this particular guy I really condemn those actions. And I think also, and I'll put this to also our seniors, Eric, and now that this issue, what we cannot ignore, it's the LGBT. If there's some mode of training that, even journalists, can go, through it in terms of coverage, because again, we have to inform how we will not be judged as promoting this particular idea. And so I think I'll just throw it to Eric of, in terms of highlighting this, because you say, Sarah, like all the local media were there on Friday and we highlighted, and the outcome, unfortunately, one of the interested parties in this and who was in court was attacked. Now you can just imagine if we did an extensive coverage of this, highlighting, because there was a lot of activity. Actually, I felt as TV, would have done more in terms of highlighting the profiles of even the ones who were present in court, but at the same time looking at our society. And this is an assumption, if indeed 80% feel that, we still don't buy into this. Do we put them in danger if we highlight it? It's a very tricky situation.
There is that, the ridicule.
Yeah, there is.
And people can actually go to their places, track them down, and they would be forced to leave the country.
Yes, but Mike, I agree with what Seth is saying. Number one, we should not encourage violence against anybody, because the media is supposed to serve everybody in the society. So what we need to do, I know, is a very sensitive issue, so we need to equip journalists with the necessary skills in terms of trainings, like he says, so that we're able to handle this matter in a more open, in a better way, so that we are not seen to be against anybody or promoting any given culture, but at least we're able to put out these issues out there so people are able to understand. So yes, I think there are several opportunities on a training. It's something that we may consider, so that we are able to get the opportunities for training for journalists who are interested in this. It doesn't mean that only journalists actually who probably align to this are the ones who probably could attend, but we just treat it just like any other training for journalists to empower, to boost their capacity to handle this subject matter.
Right. And just in conclusion, we're in a society that is very harsh against the gay community, the LGBT community, based on our history and our cultural environment, we could call it that. So how do we balance it, covering it in terms of giving the members of this community a platform to speak would be seen as agreeing with them and promoting them? Or even if you give them a platform and you challenge what they do, why are you how you are, why do you do what you do, would be seen as attacking them. So how do we give that balance of fair, objective coverage on this, if there's anything like that? This is to Sarah, first of all.
First of all, I would like to believe that we need to cover them as a minority group that is different from us. And in society, if you look at any society, there are people who are always different. You know, first of all, you and I are different.
Yes.
You're male, I'm female. That already is an issue with some people. I'm Christian, you're Muslim. That already is an issue. You're straight, I'm gay. That already is an issue. I mean, so let's not put it, just because, I think the problem here is because it's a sexual thing. So we've made it a taboo. I think Achuka put it very, very well when he said, 30 years ago, when we covered HIV and AIDS, was totally horrendous. We have come so far, we've moved from a situation where we are calling people with HIV as victims. Today, they're living positively. I don't know, living with what? People who are looking forward to their lives. There's medication involved. Hopefully one day we are going to reach a place where even LGBT people will just be other people who are different. Their sexual preferences are different from other people. That's it. So we need to cover this thing like, first of all, treat this person, if they are professional, he's a doctor, she's a doctor, and this is what she does in everyday life. But the only thing that would make her different or make him different is that he's homosexual or he's gay. And that's it. But otherwise, there's nothing else. Will be Wanjiku, will be Kikuyu, Kamba, will be Christian, will be Muslim, will be, and then also gay. Just like that.
Okay. Vincent, concluding on this, and then we get into the diplomatic matters.
I think it's just a matter of time. It's not something that we can force at the moment. You know, time changes so many things. At the moment, if we take what Sarah is saying, and if you start probably writing stories that look like they are promoting homosexuality and gay affairs, automatically people will judge you. And you as a reporter, first of all, people might start saying you're either gay or you're not, because it's now an issue of you're with us or against us.
Yes.
Let us just give it time. Like when President Kenyatta was interviewed by the CNN probably a year ago, and he has been interviewed a number of times on this issue, all the time he has said that it's not really an important matter.
Not a priority.
Yeah, it's not a priority.
To Kenyans.
Yeah, we have so many big issues. If we were talking about poverty the way we are talking about being gay right now, I think that it will have made a difference.
All right.
Yeah.
This is something that we can't end now, but I have to give an opportunity to a very important aspect of something that's at play right now and see where the media can come in, or if it's influencing the status quo at the moment on the situation between Kenya and Somalia. Now, I'm borrowing from partly a story by Agre Mutambo, which was on Daily Nation as well as the East African. And he says, Somalia's boundary tiff with Kenya has taken a new turn after Mogadishu barred its officials from attending any meetings hosted in Nairobi to protest last week's visa denials. The Somali government has also given non-governmental organizations operating in Somalia 1 month's notice to relocate their centers to Mogadishu or be barred from operating there. The decision means the Somali officials will skip the UN Habitat Assembly, which started today in Gigiri, Nairobi, and there has been a maritime border route that we understand has influenced what is going on right now. Sarah, you are an assistant editor at the East African. This is something that is really in your alley in terms of focus. Have we been fair in telling this story?
I think now we are creeping towards the pro-nationalism, I think.
Yes.
We started off quite well, I must admit. But even just looking at Mutambo's story, it's in the intro, it says, Kenyans border tiff with Somalia takes a different time.
Yes.
Then go back a week when Somali diplomats were denied entry into Kenya. Was the story written the same way? Did we say Kenya's tiff with Somalia takes a different time when Somali diplomats are denied entry into Kenya? No, we didn't. Yeah, so why the turn?
Okay.
Yeah.
But if it is a tiff, we're looking at it right now. Somalia's boundary tiff with Kenya has taken a new turn. Of course, what has happened in this latest development influences the discussions ongoing between Kenya and Somalia. So was there anything wrong in how he started that?
Yes, absolutely, because we're trying to take the position where Kenya is, and I have to accept, it's the Daily Nation, it's a Kenyan paper. All of a sudden it's very Kenya-centric, maybe because the audience is Kenyan.
Yeah.
But let's not also, forget that we are writing for an international audience. We are also writing for Somalis who live in Kenya, quite a number of them. And the Somalis are also watching us, how we are picking this. I mean, and let's not get caught up in the government-to-government, whatever diplomatic tiff could be there or spat could be there. The media should not get caught up in those daily everything so that we are seen like we are escalating the situation.
Right.
We can cover the story and be very objective about it. I remember we were discussing with an editor today, and he said, the problem is the media can easily forget that there's a story to cover, and now we start covering it like we are Kenyan. So let's cover this story from a Kenyan point of view. Because anyway, I remember what you said, it's only in a situation of war where journalists are supposed to take a stand or to make a standpoint and say, we are standing with this. We are not at war. It's just a diplomatic whatever. It's a misunderstanding, if I can put it that way. Maybe it's more serious than that, but it's a misunderstanding. So let's not cover the story in a way that will escalate the situation. Because right now, and then remember, after this, then Somali says, now it has even, the Somalis have taken it international now. Any international organization, World Vision, Red Cross, whatever, stop running your Somalia offices in Nairobi, come to Mogadishu. Now you see where we are taking it. We are raising now the tension, we are raising, and we shouldn't do that.
Francis Kigondu, he writes and says, I think in any other issue you can be neutral, but you cannot be neutral in the spat between Kenya and Somalia. You must be patriotic. Respond to that, Eric.
Exactly, that's what I wanted to say. A story of... story of...
And you work for the East Africa.
Exactly, but if I were to look at we're talking about Daily Nation here, we're talking about a Standard or the Star or a daily newspaper, that is national newspaper, leave alone the East African, because the East African serves the larger audience beyond Kenyan borders. But for a national newspaper, it's very difficult actually to be neutral in such a story, because one, you are also relying so much on the information that comes from the government of the day that actually wants to push its agenda, its narrative for the purposes of protecting the national interest. If you look at other countries or other media, how they have covered a story of similar, you will always realize that these countries will always go by the national agenda so that they are able to protect the interest of a country. I'll give you, for example, there is one of the stories that actually I keep giving example. In a World Cup that was in South Africa, when Germany actually eliminated England, and the intro in one of the stories was that a referee who robbed England. You see, so definitely if you look at that, the intro, the way it was written, this reporter was protecting the national interest, exactly. So that is accepted world over that. Sometimes when in such a story, reporters tend to go by the narrative of a country for the purposes of protecting the interest of that country. And exactly that's what is happening here. If you look at the way Kenyan media actually we have covered this story when it started, you realize that the story has always been skewed towards the Kenyan way. So this is something that will always get happening when such stories actually they break.
Do you take the patriotic stance as well, Vincent?
No, I think Eric has forgotten to tell us how the East African will handle it.
Yes, I'll tell you.
As a regional paper, which is actually who the key decision makers are here in Nairobi.
Exactly. So what I'll tell you that for the East African, I started by
Someone
saying...
from Daily, I think this is a spat between Daily Nation and the East African.
I'll tell you, if you look at the way the East African has covered this story, actually the East African has covered the story in broader manner so that we're able to take care of all the interest. Because like I said, our audience actually is beyond beyond, and our readers actually beyond our borders. So when the East African is covering such story, you know, the mind of an East African reporter and the mind of a Daily Nation reporter, they look at things differently, not because one is lesser or one is superior, but because of the audiences, because as a journalist, sometimes also look at the audience you are going to serve.
Okay.
So when you are as an East African, you must approach a story that if this paper goes to Uganda, it is relevant to Ugandan readers. If a paper goes to Tanzania, it is relevant to Tanzanian readers. This paper goes to Somalia because we also have Somalia. The paper has to be also relevant to Somalia. So when you are doing a story, you must address all those specific interests that a paper is relevant to the audiences that you are serving.
Okay, not to put you on the spot, but this is a story on the East African. At least it's carried from the Daily Nation, Agre Mutambo's story, and the headline there is "Tit for Tat" as Somalia bans Nairobi meetings. I mean, you're okay with that headline? It doesn't, you know, raise the tension.
No, it tells you exactly that Somalia has returned the same hand that Nairobi handed it.
Exactly. So we are looking at both sides. So we are looking at both sides that somebody from Somalia will be able to get to read and know that this is what we are doing because as a result of what the decisions that were made by
And here's another one on March 7th. Kenya, Somalia failed to settle a border round. This is also the East African. Very neutral. Very neutral. Vincent, not necessarily from the Daily Nation perspective, but as a journalist, would you take a patriotic stance?
At this point in time, I think I will. Based on the fact that I'm Kenyan.
Yes.
And this is not just a rule that I'm creating, it's been there.
Yes.
If you look at even our athletes, when they run and win marathons in those countries,
yes,
the way we will carry the story, we will nose with our athletes and how they won and all that. But newspapers there, if it's a marathon in London, I know they will be looking at where Mo Farah, which position he took.
Yes.
That's what they will concentrate on. So I wouldn't blame journalists for looking like they are taking a stand. But then again, it comes to a point that it depends on who is actually giving that information. In the case of Kenya versus Somalia, publications in Somalia would largely get their information from the Somali government or Somali politicians on the matter. Kenyan publications will get that information firsthand from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and all that. So that is what largely shapes the narrative.
And informs it.
Yeah, but if you want to probably see a balanced story on this, I think you rather even get the info from an international publication. I think they will be more balanced on the matter, honestly.
To be fair and honest. Seth, this was pointed out actually by Sarah, and this was on the front page of the Daily Nation, and it reads partly here, sulking Somalia bars its officials from meetings. And you, and you said earlier that, you know, it's only one instance, the boss said, that we are in agreement, or we could say we are neutral. I mean, we're not objective, we're biased. A time of war. And Sarah says, we're not at war. This is disagreement on the border. Anything wrong with this headline in your view?
Not really. But I'd just also point out the fact that the tit for tat was a bit sensational. And it's as if we are, you know, really promoting, you know, the row between the two neighboring countries.
Yes.
And but also to say this, that also in as much as we have a responsibility to inform also the government, and especially where we get our sources from, and information should be willing and help Kenyans become more patriotic. And I just sort of go back to what Eric said, that, you know what, this government has had a lot of issues in relaying information.
Right.
And we were at a function with Ambassador, the principal, the PS, Principal Secretary for Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Mashere Kamau, at a city hotel. And you know what, it was not the agenda of the day, but there's a journalist who asked, a journalist from K24, he asked first, you know, Mr. Ambassador, and related for what is happening, is it true that, you know, a high delegation of Somalis were frustrated and were turned away? No. Next question. That was the response. And so I waited, and now I attacked again. Sorry, I asked again.
You attacked. He's using
And so I told Ambassador Bashara, this is something in the public domain, and we cannot ignore it. There is seemingly an escalation in terms of a diplomatic row between the two countries. Please just, highlight this. And you know what? He tried playing it down at first, but at last he came out and said, we demand some respect from Somalia, and we have been good neighbors. We've helped them for more than a decade sort out the domestic issues. But Kenyans feel, or a section of Kenyans feel that there's maybe a story that has not been told, and you know what? Maybe it is also our work to as journalists to go deeper into this.
Yes.
What really went down?
Yes.
Did we have to come out to arrive at this particular level? But I also think we have failed on our side.
As Kenya.
As Kenya. And especially, but I don't know if we will be deemed as being unpatriotic, because when the PS says it was an immigration issue, they didn't have visas, have we gone to Nile House to verify? Have we called?
They say they didn't get their visas at the Kenyan embassy as they should have. That's
exactly.
what they said, yes.
Exactly. Have we heard from the Somalis in terms of is this true? Just verify the facts that you have. I think from that aspect we've not gone deeper.
All right.
And we are only relying on what the Foreign Affairs Ministry is telling us.
Let's conclude this one, and I'll give it only to Sarah. Forgive me for not being fair, but if indeed Kenya has made a blunder in how it's handling this diplomatic spat, can we come out and say it? Or in the interest of being patriotic, hold on to that information and somewhat carry the message of the Foreign Affairs Ministry? Because the other side of the story, and if tensions are really raised, Somalis in Kenya can actually be attacked if indeed it gets to a point where we feel Somalia is not respecting Kenya. It happens.
And thank God for diplomacy. I don't think the government would ever come out and say, we made a mistake, or even the media come out and say, we made a mistake, because we'll keep quiet. But thank God for diplomacy, there'll be back channels. Guys will sort out this issue at the back.
Okay.
And it will, one day we'll wake up and it will solved. How, when, where, and who, we will never know. But that's how governments operate, by the way. Look at the international scenario between Trump and North Korea, or even between Trump and Iran. All of a sudden, there's been a war of words and everything. It's so high there. It's like any time now, America could strike Iran. And then all of a sudden, you hear what? The Swiss are there talking to them. The Japanese are there talking to the Iranians. I don't know the who is where, what? The back channels.
Yes.
So we can all keep face, saving face and write all our fancy headlines, tit for tat, sulking Somalia. But we know at the back there are people who are working on the diplomacy behind that. Thank God for diplomacy. I want to believe that it's actually working. So Somalia and Kenya can do the tit for tat, but I'm sure somewhere, somehow, someone is doing something, because I don't think it's in the interest of anyone for Kenya and Somalia to go to war or even have an outright, attrition with each other. No, we have too much in common and too much at stake.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Gentlemen, you forgive me because of time, just to conclude on this celebratory note of one of our own at Nation Media Group. This is a story that we aired last week, but we have to brag on this one, ladies and gentlemen. It is still news. We at NTV and Nation Media Group will be celebrating for quite some time. One of our own special features reporter, Rose Wangoi, has won the prestigious Knight International Journalism Award for 2019 for unique TV stories that you've watched here on NTV that have led to major changes. She is to be awarded in Washington on November 7th. Here's a story Brenda Wanga, our head of features desk, has put together as we celebrated Rose Wangoi.
The Nation Media Group fraternity coming together to celebrate one of their own who has once again put the media house on the global map of journalistic excellence.
Scarred by surgeries.
Rose Wangoi is one of two journalists from all over the world who have been named as this year's recipients of the prestigious Knight International Journalism Award, awarded by the International Center for Journalists.
I am pleased humbled and really honored to receive this prestigious award. It really came as a shock knowing the journalists who have won this award.
The ICJ, in its decision to award Rose Wangoi the honors this year, cites her remarkable effort in telling people's stories with a strong, consistent voice and compassion that shows through her documentaries.
Rosie has managed to put all those together, and that's why today we are here celebrating her as a Kenyan journalist who has won an international award.
This one really is a big deal, and I think this is a great moment for us. It's a great moment for nation journalism, and I know it's a great moment for you too.
But I can assure you, ranked amongst other African journalists, you've come out top, and we are very proud of you.
Keep up the good work. Your stories are always inspirational, always a joy to watch.
She has a unique talent, and we will nurture that talent and ensure that there are more NMG journalists who can win those international awards.
Rose has indeed won accolades for her strong human interest stories that she has been producing for over 10 years. She has cut a niche for herself with stories that touch on the real issues that others have often overlooked. The Knight International Journalism Award recognizes excellent reporting that makes a difference in the lives of people around the world. It is usually given to reporters, editors, technologists, media managers, or citizen journalists who, despite difficult circumstances, produce pioneering news reports or innovations that make a significant impact in their countries. She'll be feted in November this year in Washington, D.C. Brenda Wanga, NTV.
Congratulations, Rose Wangoi. And I'm laughing because my panel here are in protest. They were not there to cut the cake, but give your congratulatory message as you give your, woes also. There's a spat. You say that cake was a scam because you didn't get to partake. But anyway, Sarah, quick response as we congratulate our sister.
Absolutely. I absolutely love Rose Wangoi's stories, and it's just not one story. These are the kind of stories she's been doing her entire career that I've known her.
Yes.
Over 10 or 15 years, Rose has been doing the same kind of story. And this is the kind of journalism that we need in this country. Journalism that changes lives, journalism that actually informs and brings you the story from the people who are actually affected at the very basic.
Right.
Yep, not these scamish people.
Yep. Eric, besides the fact that we sent you the email for the cake at 4:17, a cake that was to be cut at 4:15, besides that, what can you say about this?
Yes, definitely from a union perspective, I'll say that was discrimination against section of employees. But I would say that we are proud and encouraged by the work of Rose. I know as KUJ at a time we even reached out to her to go and mentor other young journalists, and I think these are the journalists we need now to be working with in terms of mentoring other journalists, so we can also have that quality and those skills are also imparted to other upcoming journalists.
All right.
So congratulations, Rose.
Vincent?
I'll congratulate Rose first of all, but then I think from her winning that award, it shows that journalists really need to start telling stories about people.
Right.
Yeah, because whatever we are doing is supposed to be helping the common man on the ground. And we were just talking here during the break how Rose has never interviewed the likes of...
At all.
Yeah. For her stories, and they are respected internationally. Yeah, I think it's a callback to every reporter.
Well, focus should be. And I wonder if the person laughing is the one who gave that comment. What's your comment as one of the reporters who aspire as well to be consistent in the career?
Yeah, congratulations to Rose. And, on a lighter note, like what you were saying, go for the real award. Don't go for instant rewards or awards. But maybe what many don't know is that she didn't even know that she was nominated in that particular category, and it's a challenge to us that, the world out there is watching. We'll give an account to each and everything we do. I know I'm going to be the next winner, but...
Well, from what you've just said, she didn't know, and you say you know, so you know you're not getting it. Anyway, I'm just joking, but all the best. I mean, as we continue, it's a challenge to all of us. as you've said, Setolale, indeed, the world is watching. And you are watching, you've been watching PressPass, and I appreciate your time, and I appreciate my panel for covering all these issues. Normally we focus on one, but I really like how we've engaged on various issues here. And yes, the challenge is on us to up our game on all these issues that we've discussed. And I hope the editors and the bosses have been watching, and other colleagues in the industry. Thank you for your time. Thank you to the team that made this possible. My name is Mark Masai. Good night.